morning and welcome to the 45th running of the Boulder. What's started as a Memorial Day tribute has turned into, in many ways, a rite of passage. So we're excited to be here once again this morning. It's bright and early, 6:45 almost, and we're going to have the official start time going off with. We're going to start, Frank, with our wheelchair athletes. So those that are they're going to go the fastest of everyone all day. So it's nice that we get them going first when the streets are clear and safe. But really, the story of this morning, as I was driving in this morning, is the weather. So we're going to see how that affects our wheelchair athletes, and then later today as it affects our elite athletes. But our wheelchair athletes have started. We've put together, our lead athlete coordinator, which we're going to talk about later today, and then our wheelchair athlete coordinator have put together just a stellar field. And every year it's really a juggling of who can come, who fits in their schedule, what athletes are really ready to come and compete at this event at the elite level. But really the main story that we're going to talk about with our wheelchair athletes is Daniel Romanchuk.
Well, I think that's most likely Daniel Romanchuk out there in the lead. And sometimes in the wheelchair races, it's hard to see exactly who it is, but he is, the fancy word is anomaly. He is so good, so much better than anyone in the field. The record for the 10K is a little under 20 minutes. I think we said 19:45, and he's going after that, and I think that the other record he's going to set today is how far ahead he is of the second place finisher. I mean, he's that good.
Yeah, you could see that already at just 1:30 into the race, and it's hard to judge distances on the camera, but
right.
He's already made a significant move, and he's pulling away. When we were talking with him yesterday, Frank, I thought he just had an amazing mindset where he said, I'm going to focus on those things that I can control, on the elements that make the most sense for me, and that was about pace and his efficiency.
Yeah.
And so but he's never raced at altitude. So that was going to be the one variable that he was curious about was how's he going to manage his effort at altitude. I think the other piece is, the roads are a little bit wet. They're not to the point where I think it's going to affect our runners. But these wheelchairs are high-level machines that we talked about also with him, and in the last 3 or 4 years he's have made significant changes. But we'll be curious if that affects him. I'll be curious afterwards to speak with him if that affects the turning and some of his having to be a bit more timid around those turns.
Oh, yeah, and the race now is for second place, and they feel that the saving of energy when you are not leading and the three people behind, all vying for second place, they have at least a 35% advantage in terms of the energy they have to use. And that's why Daniel, he goes right to the front because he doesn't want anybody behind him on his wheel using him so they can draft and save energy. So he's just out, and those of us who run, we call it a time trial. He's on a time trial. And also, if you look at the wheelchairs, very often the wheelchairs weigh less than a bicycle. And, they're very, very light, and obviously they train on them. And here in this race, once you get to, I'd say the 4 mile point at Casey Junior High, up that hill, it's really all downhill in a sense to the finish, and all you have to do is get up that last little climb. And it would be very hard for anybody, I think, in a wheelchair to pass coming up that hill. So here we are, and we're just going to see. And the other thing that you've talked about, Alan, is the conditions today. Let's talk about that because we can't stress that too much.
Yeah, it's really, I can't remember. I'm going to have to do a little digging before our elite race, but it's been several decades since we've had a morning like this.
1995.
95 was when both of the male and female records were set on a morning just like this, overcast skies. Oh, wait, did we just have an accident there? Sorry to interrupt myself, but was that Romanchuk at the mile 1? Well, we're going to have to maybe get some info back from our lead vehicles, but that looked like Romanchuk. That is Romanchuk. and it looked like he was stopped there for a minute. So I'm not sure if he had an accident. I did notice a minute before that, as he was in his cadence, that he was being very particular about go around potholes. And so that's something else that they have to navigate. They're not just navigating their pace and their cadence, but also these small little undulations in the road conditions. But you can see he's already pulling away. So something did happen.
Something happened, and when you're if you look at it, it's pretty obvious that they're not looking ahead all the time. I think they get a bit more power if they look down. That's where their rhythm comes from.
And now we have a look at the A-Wave. A-Wave has started. This is kind of the other Memorial Day tradition, is who can act the silliest the first 400 meters and sprint out into the front, and then the real race begins after that. So this is these are actually, some of these athletes are standout high school runners in the area that are just finished their high school season running at the state track meet, and now they've decided that they want to come run the Boulder to cap off their season. So we could talk through some of those as we get a little bit further along, but let's let it settle in before we go into too deep a dive.
That's more like it.
One thing to note, Frank, on right of screen is
we have someone who really is. I feel pretty legitimate, don't you think?
Yeah, you can tell that.
Away. We'll get his number here.
Yeah, we'll do our best, folks, to kind of break down the leaders as it unfolds and showcase those moves, and also we'll throw back to the wheelchair division. I do want to mention just quickly just a few more of the participants in the wheelchair division. We also have not talked about Kendall Gretsch on the women's side. She's also a dominant figure in the sport. She's down out of Colorado Springs. She's a 4-time Paralympic gold medalist, so both winter and summer. So she's seeking her third Boulder title. So just the way that it unfolds with cameras and the number of and how spread out the wheelchair division is, hard for us to get visuals on everybody, but did want to mention Kendall, because she's been here before, she's won before, right, and I'd be surprised if she wasn't able to take that win again today.
And then we talked about the conditions, and there is something about when it's just this temperature and just this amount of water on the course, there's something about, in a way, the atmospheric pressure increases a little bit, and you can actually run a little bit faster. And so that's what these conditions, it hasn't been this way since 1995, and that year they ran under 28 minutes. The course record, 27:52, and generally when I was racing, we would subtract at least a minute from the time and say that's what you could run at sea level. That's how much more slowly you run at about a mile high. And so 26:52 at that time, I think most likely would have been a world record for the roads. So it really is, I call it, and we'll do that before the main race, I'll repeat it, I call it a no excuses day. If you don't run as well and as fast as you would like to, I'm not so sure you're going to be able to blame it on the weather.
Well, that in the black Nike uniform, that's Kayshawn Harrison. He's a redshirt sophomore here at the University of Colorado. So he's out of New Mexico originally, but he lives and trains here in Boulder. So obviously they decided, let's see how running the 10K on the roads fits into his season. I'm imagining he had conference here a few weeks ago, and now he's decided to come out and give it a go.
And he's trained on this course. He's probably run it a number of times, and it's good because the more you train, it's like when you're training to run, it's why a lot of runners, I think we were those, you have different routes that you run, and why? And well, the reason is, well, that's the route I run when I'm running easy. And so I think he's probably run this repeatedly, because when you do that, it just seems to not take as long, just mentally. And so he knows where he is, in a way, much better than the other runners.
And they're breaking away now that we're seeing, oh, sorry, that was just the way the screen looks of the A-Wave, but there's our top three on right of screen in the white singlet. That's Frank Lara. He also trains here in Boulder with the Roots Running Project. So he's been a figure. He's an Olympic trials level marathoner.
Right.
So he's familiar with these course, familiar with what it's like here to. We've talked about this before, Frank, but racing at altitude is largely about your perceived efforts. Just you don't really have to get quite as hung up on pacing unless you live and train here. But they're really going off of how they feel. They just went through the mile. It looks like just about 450 per mile.
Right. And that is about, wasn't that about 29 minutes?
440 would be 29 low. So yeah, it's about 29 mid, which is very good running. Last year, our Aiden Reed, he was our champion last year of the Citizens Race, who will be in our professional team challenge later. He ran just over 30 minutes. He said, "Oh, my goal was to break 30 minutes," but he ran just over 30 minutes, and that's very competitive even on the elite side.
Right.
So if these guys, I would imagine they'll slow down and settle in and run more in that 30 range.
Right.
But every year that's close to winning this race every year.
And again, they just go out there, and at this point, I think you should trade the lead. And because you're all out there, the three of you are ahead, and it's top three places that matter. But the other thing here is the person who wins this race graduates up to the open race the next year, and so if they want to, and so that's the other incentive. If you're going to come back, you might as well. Well, not might as well. You want to maybe be part of the white team, and so that's what's going to happen today later on.
And now up into the front, that's Andy Wacker. He's also a CU runner, a grad student here at CU on the CU track and field and cross country team. So that's a team affair. So they're comfortable with each other. They know each other. They obviously had decided, like, hey, let's both run the BOLDERBoulder along with their coach. And now they've decided that they're going to set the tone. And again, as we've talked about, knowing that they can run around 450 a mile was surely their goal, because that's what they've settled into. And Frank, this will be the interesting part, as you just mentioned, is there somebody that's going to make a statement to break away, or are they going to help each other so that they pull away? That's Scudamore back in there in fourth with the tall figure with the bouncy form. I remember him. He was from Charlotte, is where he went to college, and was a multiple-time NCAA qualifier, high-level runner. I'm imagining he's out here training for the summer.
And on this course, this is the first real test. This is the first real uphill. On Folsom, they're heading up this hill, and you get an idea. And very often you can kind of press a little bit and just see how the other runners are going to react. And here we see, you can see a little gap is starting, because he's really pressing a little just to test. You just test people. And also to find out how he feels as he runs up the hill that way. If he feels anaerobic, if he doesn't feel like he's going, if he feels aerobic and he doesn't feel he's going anaerobic, he sort of saves that knowledge for later. And here, this is where, in a sense, it's almost an interval that he's run up that hill. He's pressed it a little, and now down the hill, they're relaxing. And now we see who recovers best from that first climb.
Yeah, so they're on Folsom now. They're heading north over that little hill. Now they're going to be heading towards the neighborhood part, is what we would call. So as they move through the neighborhoods, more turns, and that's what generally opens up more separation between the runners, because you're running tangents.
Right.
And as you begin to lose that visual of your competitors, it just you take your foot off the gas unknowingly, and so that's where we tend to see bigger gaps.
And that's where people will surge and try to get away, so that they can actually, if they do it well, the blocks aren't that long in that neighborhood, and you can even get to the point where you can be so far ahead that those behind you, when they come and you go around a turn, you can actually come to the next turn before the person behind you comes off that turn. And then for people who aren't aware of when we talk about tangents, it's really running or in this case, wheeling the least distance around the corner.
There you see your leaderboard for the 3 mile split for your pro wheelchairs on both the men's and women's side. So up on the screen, you'll see that. So back to Daniel Romanchuk, who's our leader, 3 miles, about 11:38, I believe that was. Schobert, so that's, yeah, let's run through a few of those names for you. So that's Krieg Schobert out of Rome, Georgia. He was in second. And Aguilar is in third, Garrick in fourth, and then Byers. That next pack seems to be right together. Looks like a pack of 2 and 3 and 4 are right together based on those splits. So Daniel, once again, whatever happened, I'll be real curious to hear what happened right there by the mile mark. But then he's once again just put his foot on the gas and he's pulled way ahead. So he has a minute and 30 lead at the 3 mile mark. He's actually now at the 4 mile mark. So they go quickly. So he'll be in the stadium by 20 minutes. I'm imagining he lost about 20 or 30 seconds with that hiccup.
Yep. And here we go. It's a race for first now. It really does look like no one's going to come from behind here because no one's really tried to bridge that gap. And so now I think they are they coming to, where are they right now? Are they
So they're back in the neighborhoods now. So not quite to Columbine Elementary, but they've made that left-hand turn and now they're heading west. Actually, we did get some feedback from the press vehicle and those that are out on the course that Daniel had lost a piece off of his chair. So there was a mechanical issue.
Oh.
He was able to pick it up and put it back on. So he had to literally stop, turn around, pick up this piece. Yeah, I'll be curious what that piece was. It must be critical for him to stop.
Right. So here, yeah, that makes much more sense because he's trained in the rain. And he's trained on streets that are wet like this, so it's that makes it's good to know that happened. So it wasn't a skill error; it was just a mechanical error.
So back to our leaders. That's Kayshawn Harrison and Andy Wacker. It looks like that gap for back to third to Scudamore is closed slightly because now he's passed Frank Lara, and that gap to me looks like he may be gaining down just a little bit. They've already passed the 2 mile mark. So we're going to start to see as this, really the crux of this race is once I get to the Casey Middle School 4 mile hill, that's when every year we decide who's going to have the strength, who paced properly, and then who feels good for those last 2 miles.
Right. And I may have tried to call this too soon. And I don't mind being wrong, by the way. It's fun. It's fun to see someone who goes out smart like this. And again, you see third place, he's looking around to fourth place and he sees that his effort is producing a gap and his effort is also closing the gap in front. So he knows he's running faster than everybody else in the race at this point.
We just heard that Romanchuk had to stop again and fix something. So this is clearly not going to be his best day in terms of from a mechanical issue, which is a common piece in cycling and wheelchair racing. But to have 2 on the same day is quite uncommon. It's not affected his lead. He's still well ahead of second place. But it's more just about what he was hoping to come and accomplish today with that course record that we talked quite a bit about yesterday at the press conference. And he didn't want to say, oh, I'm chasing specific times. I'm really here just to compete and do the best I can. And now I think it's going to be one of those days that he chalks it up as, hey, you can't control what happens, and I did the best I could, but I'm still going to go for the win.
I think he's coasting home now. He's not really pressing. He's just, I think he's warming down at this point, and and I think that's smart. He'll just save it for another day, because it's not only the race. When you're in a season of racing the way he is, it pays when you're this far ahead and you're not going to get the record to just say, okay, let's shut it down because then I don't have to recover as much or as long. Here we go. Here we go on the open, on the Citizens.
So that's my bad, folks. I was going off of memory from watching this individual that's now moved up to the front. That's Nick Scudder. I was saying Scudamore. That's my bad. I was going off of memory, and I'm glad that I double-checked that with our support staff. So that's That's Nick Scudder, who went to Charlotte University and has now graduated and moved on. And he's making a statement now that he's decided he's not going to just bridge that gap, but he's going to make a move and move into the front.
And I think we're going to find out that he's trained at altitude. And he came out here from Charlotte, and maybe even last year, and now he's been out here for a while. And again, that's a guess on my part, but I don't think you can run this well if you haven't been up here at altitude, training at altitude.
They're coming down that hill, heading back south. The 5K mark is just about to come up. You can tell Nick doesn't know this course particularly well because he doesn't know that a right-hand turn is coming up.
Yep, correct.
His competitors there that live and train in Boulder are also ready for that right-hand turn that's about to come just past the 5-mile mark. Nick keeps grabbing his stomach a little bit. I don't know if it's his bib. He's adjusting his bib, but I've noticed him several times kind of reaching up towards his stomach. Hopefully he's not dealing with some sort of a side cramp and more of just an irritation. But he's off to the far left-hand side of the road, and now he sees, okay, now the turn's coming.
Right.
Over the course of 10 kilometers at 6.2 miles, that makes a difference. Those little bits here and there, that adds up over time. But right now, it doesn't seem to affect his pacing.
He has a long stride.
Yes, he does. He's
very long
he's
stride.
over 6 feet tall, so he's about 6'3", if I remember correctly. After I did not remember his last name correctly, but I remember it definitely that he's tall. He has trained at altitude in the past. I remember when he was at Charlotte, I remember seeing him in Flagstaff, Arizona for his summer training.
Oh, okay.
And I'm curious if now maybe Boulder has become more of his base for summer training.
Well, he could be there and just flew in. So
that's true.
We'll see. And he looks good. And for those of you to go 50 years back and more, in the 1972 Olympics, I had a great friend, Jack Batchelor, who made the marathon team, and he was he was actually 6'7", but he was so kind of embarrassed about how tall he was. He always said he was 6'6", but he was a world-class marathoner. He was 6'7", and almost broke 4 minutes for a mile.
So Romanchuk's back in the flow. He talked a lot about rhythm and flow of racing and that cadence.
Yeah.
He's obviously back in that, but that's, he's already at 22 minutes now, coming up the hill. So now it looks like he's crossed over where family student housing and the Boulder Creek path. He's about to make the right-hand turn onto Stadium Drive, past our very own Frank Shorter statue. Well placed at the hardest point of the course, Frank. So there you can see he's coming up that hill just outside the stadium. So he'll be making his way down onto the stadium floor, where I imagine it'll be quite delicate to make sure he's safe coming onto that surface that could be quite slippery.
And here we have first woman, I would imagine, and maybe we can get a number and find out who she is.
Yes, we'll get her name. So we got a visual now on our top female competitor here in the A wave, which is she's obviously mixed in with the male runners, able to use some of them for her pacing and strategy. But we'll get her name here in just a minute as we talk to our folks out on the course. But Nick Scudder looks to be still having a slight lead. He's built that lead as he went through 6K. I don't know if, considering that he hasn't run the tangents, I'm not sure if he knows that the highest point on the course is coming up at 4 miles.
But he's just pulling away, and he's got the watch, so he knows what his pace is. And he'll go up the hill by Casey, and then I think at that point he'll look around, find out how far ahead he is. And here we go. Here's the wheelchair finish.
Here we go with Daniel Romanchuk, your leader, who has made his way around this course, around 24 minutes coming into the stadium. This is Daniel's first time to Boulder, Colorado for this Memorial Day race, and we're welcoming him to the finish line today. So that's Catherine Fleur we were just getting more information on our women's Citizens Race winner. That's Catherine Fleur, She's a 2024 U.S. Olympic Trials qualifier. She lives and trains here in Boulder as well.
Nice, easy, steady pace. And also, look at her head. Watch her head. She doesn't bounce, and that's a very good sign. You know, she's not wasting energy up and down. And the other thing is, you don't impact the street as much, and so you can actually save a little of the pounding.
Well, we just noticed there Andy Wacker kind of hyping up his teammate there on the side from Roots Running, and he looks like he's actually closing that gap back down to Scudder, which, as we talked about, they just went over the Casa Hill the summit, which is the highest point in the course. So now is really when the real race begins.
Yep, this is where, from here, and he's going to sprint down that hill because he knows that once he gets to the bottom, it's also still a very gentle descent to the 5 mile point. So the next mile very often can be the fastest mile in the race after the first, if you know, people don't hold back. But I think there was a little difference also. It's very hard to tell with the cameras from this angle just how far behind second and third place are. When they were coming up, it really was condensed, and and it really looked like it was closer than it actually is.
It was, and then I don't know if Andy was just maybe putting a surge up that hill, but now Nick has pulled back away, kind of established that bigger lead. Now they're turning onto onto that's not
Spruce?
Quite, that's Spruce, and then they'll make the turn onto Pearl. So Nick's a 28-28 10K runner on the track and 13:33 5K runner, so he's very familiar with this high-level type running. Now we have some more of our wheelchair athletes coming in for their finish. Let's congratulate them as they make their way through the finish line. They're going to break that 27-minute mark. We'll keep an eye out for our top female wheelchair athlete as well. That looked like that was Garrick in second to me, if I'm not mistaken.
And you see that turn, that was a very long straightaway down Spruce. And that's exactly where you want to make that turn and look around, and then you can see how far ahead you are. And just as Alan was saying, he's not familiar, our leader isn't familiar with the tangents here, running the shortest possible course, even though he's run here before.
Well, and he's coming down Pearl, and again, it's going to be a right-hand turn, and he's running right down the middle. So he's definitely not running the fastest route, the shortest route.
It's going to be a right and then a very quick left to the 5 mile point.
And Frank Lara back in second hasn't let that gap completely dissolve. So he's maintained that gap. They haven't reached the 5 mile mark, so there's still plenty of running left. There's a shot of our female leader, Catherine Fleur. She's a 1:12 half marathoner. She did that back in March in New York. So she's coming off a personal best half marathon several months ago, and now dropping down to the 10K distance. We are seeing some other, on our graphic here, that on the women's side, Fleur's in first. She has only about a 7-second lead over Sarah Vaughn, who's competed, across multiple distances at a high level at the Olympic trials level. She's also a 2:26, I believe, going off of memory, marathoner. And she's run in the professional team challenge before. So Sarah looks to be closing down on that lead. So we'll see how that was at 4 miles. So we'll see if we can get a 5 mile split and give you a better update at that point. But as we talked about with the with navigating those turns. With the women commingled with the men, it is harder to tell where your competitors are, just because there's men sprinkled in between you. If it was a women's only field, it would be a little easier to gauge that. That's back to the men's leader, Scudamore. He's now past 5 miles. He's gonna make a right-hand turn onto Folsom Avenue and have that, what feels like a long grind back up to the stadium, where he'll know it, he'll see up ahead how far he has to go back to the stadium. He's running down the middle of the road, doesn't know he has a right-hand turn.
Sure.
That'll be our, that'll probably be his biggest takeaway, is like, all right, now I know the course a little bit better, so I know how to predict where I want to position myself on the course. He's definitely running significantly longer just by running back and forth on that street. There's your 5 mile split, 24-12. Frank Lara back, that's Scudder, Nick Scudder. Back to Frank Lara in second. He's 9 seconds back, and Andy Wacker now has dropped back to, that was at 5 miles. But it looks like now we have another individual that's made his way up to Frank Lara for that second place fight.
First woman.
Here we go, that's Kendall Gretsch out of Colorado Springs, multiple time winner here, multiple time gold medalist, Paralympian gold medalist. We're excited to have Kendall back. And once again, coming in to be your top female wheelchair competitor. Congratulations, Kendall, well done. So our female Catherine Fleur, who's still in the lead, she's projected for about a 34-45 finish based on that 4 mile split. So obviously high level running. It's hard to tell from that camera angle how far back Sarah Vaughn is and if she's continued to close that gap, but Catherine's navigating her way through the men that are in her close vicinity. I imagine Sarah is back in that other pack just behind her. 7 seconds is not that far, is not unsurmountable over the course of a mile by any stretch. Nick on the right-hand side is maintaining that lead. It doesn't look like that has closed down at all. He's on Folsom. He's within about a little over 1,000 meters to go, so he's coming up on the 9K mark.
And don't be fooled by this camera angle. The second and third are a little bit farther behind than they seem to be at this from this view, from this angle.
And I think our graphic there might just be, we may not have picked up on now who's in second place, because that's not Andy Wacker. Frank Lara is still in that second place, in that pack for running for second. But now another individual that might be Brown. So we'll have to get a better idea if that's for sure him. He looks to be really pressing a little bit and maybe has a half step on Frank Lara. There's that 9K mark back in the background. So they have just over about 3 minutes left of running. There's a look down Folsom, looking north, back towards the Boulder Creek path. And that's where our competitors here in this citizens race will be just coming into that point. Well, we have close finish here on the wheelchair division. Very close.
Ooh.
Hard to call from our vantage point. Well done. There's Fleur. Oh, and that looks like Nick has Scudder. On our screen, we're seeing Nick Scudder, and it looks like he has pressed again and is pulling away. I think he now knows, okay, I can see that I'm going to be able to push now to the finish. So I'll be curious if Nick, I do not recall seeing Nick race here before, largely because he was in the midst of his collegiate season, and running a 10K when he had NCAAs coming up in a couple of weeks would not have fit in a road race like this. But now that he doesn't have that same sequencing, he was able to fit this into his training, fit it into his plan. He's made the turn onto Stadium Drive. You can see the 6 mile mark there, so 0.2 left, just over a quarter mile to finish up this race. We'll welcome him into the stadium in just about 45 seconds.
And he may run under 30. It looks like.
He might.
Yep.
Yeah, he's at just about 29 minutes when he passed that 6 mile mark.
And that's 385 yards rather than 440. So he's not quite a quarter of a mile from the finish there.
And there's your female leader. Fleur made that turn onto Folsom, so she is past the 5 mile
There we go.
mark. Let's welcome Nick Scudder. Nick Scudder made his move about 5K, moved into the lead, and he did not falter ever since. Making a statement here. We'll see if he can sneak under 30 minutes today for his 10 kilometers. Great job to Nick Scudder. .30.02 is what we're seeing. Well done. Very, very high level running. Great job, Nick. That's Frank Lara in second place.
Good finish.
You can tell there just that floor is a little bit slippery just from some of the feedback we're seeing as they make that right-hand turn. There's Kayshawn Harris, and this, we didn't talk about this much, but this was Bacon versus Banana, and Bacon has laid it down today. So Bacon is gonna take the win over Banana today, so we'll wait to see what that spread looks like, but well done, Bacon.
Last year wasn't Banana third in the whole race? In this race.
I think you're right, and we're still just having a bit of an error there with that third place was showing Wacker, but Wacker was not third. We'll do our best again to get the final results. There's Banana. Yes, sir. Sorry that Bacon took you down, buddy, but hey, good running. Both really high level from both of these guys.
Running just over 5 minutes a mile.
Oh, and there now we have a visual. That's Sarah Vaughn, who has just made the pass to go into the lead. So Sarah Vaughn, who was about 7 seconds back at the 5 mile mark, has now moved into the lead. They're at 36. Sorry, that's the wheelchair time, 36. Our A-Wave is at 32 minutes. So 32 minutes for Sarah. She's by Family Student Housing, about to cross the Boulder Creek path. So she's under 1,000 meters to go. She's about 600 meters to go now.
She timed it well.
She did. She knows this course. She lives and trains here.
And most likely does repetitions running up that hill at the end to the 6 mile point.
University of Colorado graduate, mother of 4.
Wow.
Kind of a
great
all around, does it all. Still putting together high level, elite level racing. She did move to the marathon a few years ago and really made a statement and I think surprised herself. She was more of a 1,500 meter runner for the majority of her career, and then decided, you know, I'm gonna try the marathon. It fits better into my, at this point where I am in life, and made a massive statement and really has shown that she can run at every distance, has made that turn onto Stadium Drive. Again, that with the tactics, it's definitely trickier with the men and women that they are navigating, combing through the other competitors. I think Sarah was able to hide out a little bit back there, and then once she made her move, she passed definitively and has not slowed down. This looks like more of not just overcast, but an actual drizzle now. So actual rain coming down, which will affect that footing. Absolutely, on this surface that they put down that covers the grass, it can get slippery.
It is so much fun to have that little downhill onto that straightaway. In a way, that's, you know, you're home there. You know you're home, and then it's a question, okay, let's test a little, see how much you got.
And there is Sarah. Sarah Vaughn has made her way into the stadium. Look for the arm sleeves. She is our top female finisher in this citizens race for the 45th running of the Boulder Boulder. Catherine Fleur in second place is now into the stadium.
Great finish by Sarah, and you can see she was a 1,500 meter runner, and you can go up in distance as you get older, and you can actually convert some of your fast twitch fibers and to have more endurance. You can't go the other way and get faster as you keep training, but you can get faster if you're a 1,500 meter runner, or even 1,500 meters is about the limit. 800 meters, they tend to stay on the track, but 1,500 meter runners from the track can, as you see, run very, very well. There she is, second place.
That's Myers was third, so we had Fleur in second, Myers in third, and Graves a close fourth. So there's your top four for your citizens race. And now we'll have the onslaught of the 50,000 rest of the field that are going to be coming and making their way for the next several hours across the finish line. Steve Bosley, race founder, he spends countless hours putting together that wave start that he pioneered many years ago to help slowly trickle out the masses onto the course safely so they have space to run and walk. And there are 98 waves today. So all these competitors were in the first wave, and now we have 97 more that are behind them. So congratulations to all this. This is high-level training. These are all of the athletes that have put in a lot of hard work to ensure that they're in that A wave so they can come out here and put together their best possible race. And we're going to be back in a couple hours, Frank, so we're excited to bring you that elite athlete race, the Pro Team Challenge. We have teams from all over the world competing to showcase who is the best individual and who is the best team. And we'll be back around 11 o'clock to give you all that coverage. So congratulations to all these competitors, and we will see you in a few hours.